This is Metal Mike, and in this episode of the 80's Glam Metalcast, we talk to a kick-ass drummer who's played with Wasp and Dee Snider, Mike Dupke. Mike gives us first-hand info on what it's like working with Blackie Lawless. We have a blast also talking about Kiss, concept albums, and a whole lot more. Check it out. Welcome to the 80's Glam Metalcast. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Mike. What's going on?
Hey, not much, man. Thanks for taking some time to talk to me today.
Of course.
So what's been going on? Have you been affected by the whole COVID thing? Have you missed out on some touring?
Yes. I would say there's been touring and live shows and teaching, and I'm one of the millions that have been affected by this. Like, obviously, you've seen, like, pretty much every gig, every tour, basically every musical act has come to a standstill. We're hoping, obviously you've seen too that like maybe it's starting to turn around. There's a lot of dates that people are saying might still potentially happen later in the summer and the fall, which would be great. But I think everyone's just kind of proceeding with caution as to whether or not it's going to be, completely safe to get back into big numbers again.
What have you been doing in your downtime?
The only job that has been continuing is one of the places that I teach is actually a kids music school called Join the Band in Van Nuys out here in LA. And after the lockdown started and kids all started doing homeschooling, the couple that runs this school, they got a system going to keep everything going on either Skype or Zoom lessons, and much to their happiness, the parents were all for it, because since the kids were all going to be home, they're like, yeah, boy, we're going to need, things for the children to do. So most of the parents were cool with it. So luckily, I've been able to keep that up and been able to do that via video from my own personal practice space, which has been nice. So I've gotten that a couple of days a week. But obviously, Musicians Institute and all of live gigs around town and everywhere else are still on hold. So I've been doing that, you've probably seen like on my feed and anything, if you took a look, that my son has been sick. Actually, he was diagnosed with cancer last year, and so we have been battling that. But so far so good, and he is doing wonderful. But that's been taking up a lot of our time as well.
Understood. I'm glad to hear that he's doing a lot better. That's good to hear.
Yeah, we're not 100% in the clear yet, but we are definitely speeding down that highway. And I'll do a definite plug for Children's Hospital Los Angeles, is where he has received most of his care so far, and that place is they're just wonderful. Those doctors and nurses there, they're some of the greatest people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. They're so awesome. They take such good care of everybody who's down there. So, yeah.
Well, hey, man, I'll be praying for him. Hopefully he'll be cancer-free very soon.
That's the hope, for sure. And thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So, you got your professional start with John Mellencamp, correct?
Yes. Very brief and a long time ago, but I had a very small stint with him when I was studying with Kenny Aronoff at Indiana University in the 90s when I was at IU. He had put out a new record at the time. It was called Human Wheels, that had a bunch of extra percussion on it. And as I was told, he got to see me I was doing marching band and just about every band program that IU had at the time, including the basketball pep band with Bobby Knight. And Mellencamp, who had season tickets to all the games, said, who's that student playing the drums? And Kenny's like, who's that guy playing drums in the pep band? And he said, oh, that's my student, although I was one of about 4 or 5 drummers there. He goes, yeah, let's get him and come and play some trash cans on for a couple of shows. So Kenny brought me in, and I got to do a couple of concerts and performances, and one music video that he put out at the time. The whole thing really only lasted a matter of months in the fall of '93, but it definitely gave me a kickstart and was my first real taste of kind of professionalism and what could be. So kind of used that as a starting point.
Nice. And so you're the dude jamming on tambourines and bongos on the Arsenio Hall performance, right?
That's right. It was the first time I ever came to L.A. We went to Stage 29 on the Universal lot, and we did 2 songs from the new record at the time. Yeah, I played bongo. Yeah, one tune was like tambourines and bongos, and the other song I literally played a trash can, one of those like old 70s metal Brady Bunch trash cans turned upside down, and just got to beat on that thing with sticks. And just watching the footage back now, I have that look on my face like I can't believe this is happening. But it was a lot of fun. And if I ever see Mellencamp again, I'd be sure to thank him. Actually, I had a funny experience a couple of weeks ago, right before everything got shut down. The Whiskey has that thing called the Ultimate Jam Night on Tuesday nights, where a whole bunch of musician folks from the LA area get together to do whatever theme they have, like 80's or Slayer night or New York bands or something like that. And I actually got to run into vocalist Roberta Freeman, who was one of the backup singers for Mellencamp at the time, who I had not seen since about 93. And I kind of came and said, do you remember like some little punk kid who played a trash can next to Kenny? And like, that was me. And she's like, oh, God. So it was good to see her again.
When you go back onto YouTube and you watch some of these performances on Arsenio Hall, man, didn't he have some killer acts on his show? I mean, there's nothing like it today.
Of course. Oh, I was a fan. Like, and I think everybody my age was like always checked out Arsenio to see who he had on, because he and it was so diverse too.
It was.
Like he'd have the more the classic rock acts like Mellencamp, but also like the legends, like I want to say like James Brown was on his show too, upwards like bands like Living Colour too. It's like it was, the diversity was great.
So you get to the 2000s and you're in a band, Hair of the Dog. Now, I seemed like I had heard of Hair of the Dog, but I don't think I ever heard any of the music. So I went back and listened before our interview, and that's some pretty good stuff, man. That's some pretty good hard rock.
That was pretty good hard rock. I'd say so too. We were all really proud of what we did, and I came in later. The band had already put out one record and had already done a fair amount of touring. Cinderella had taken them out, and Rat had taken them out, and they had already built up a name for themselves by the time I came in to write and record the second record, Rise. But just a common story at the time, it just wasn't in the cards for as much as we thought, we had the formula to really make it, getting signed and all that, and happy with the material that we were putting out, but it just didn't happen, unfortunately. But you can look back at those times and just really enjoy it. That was the first bit of, like, aside from, I didn't get to tour with Mellencamp.
Mm-hmm.
Hair of the Dog was the first real touring experience that I ever had, and it was just a whole bunch of fun, because those guys were just a bunch of stand-up gentlemen, and always liked having a good time. And that music was all about fun, so it was a great experience with those guys as well.
So Ryan Cooke was the singer, and for all the listeners who don't know, he went on to play in the Gene Simmons band and the Ace Frehley solo band, correct?
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. So there's the Kiss connection, and I think on the album, the end of the album, you guys do I. Don't you do a cover of I?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you listened to it. We thought we had a lot of fun putting in a real small Kiss montage instead of the usual just guitar hits and clapping like the original.
Uh-huh.
We played like little snippets of like 4 or 5 different Kiss songs, because all of us were always huge Kiss geeks. Yeah. For sure. I certainly was, since I was in kindergarten. I got happy you talk about an email. Like, Kiss seems to come up in every conversation. I'm like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, Kiss is my favorite band. They always come up. So you got a favorite era of the band?
Oh, no. I do not have a favorite era of the band, because I have been pretty much a fan all the way through. I do confess that some of the more recent releases like Sonic Boom and Monster, I haven't checked out, as much as the classics or even the 80s or 90s stuff. No, I was still the guy in, 96 that went to, I think it was like some supermarket that had a Ticketmaster booth, and like tickets were going to go on sale for the reunion tour at like 10 a.m. and I got there at 6 a.m. so I could camp out.
Yeah.
As I had the manager of the store yelling at me because I guess I was blocking the donuts or something like that. But ended up getting my tickets, and that first reunion show in '96, that's still one of my favorite concerts of all time because they were still finding their ground musically at that point. They were still getting used to each other.
Yeah.
But dude, I don't think ever heard an arena crowd like that. That roof was flapping. Like, just the audience reaction was just unreal. Everyone was screaming their asses off, and that's what made it so much fun.
Yeah, that was good stuff because I never got to see him with the makeup. I think the first time I saw him was on the Hot in the Shade tour, so it was awesome to see the original guys in makeup. But if I had to go back and pick an era, man, I like some of those weird eras. Like I like Dynasty and Unmasked and Creatures of the Night. I kind of like some of those more lesser known or offbeat eras of the band.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, and there was. That's why I don't think I can pick a favorite. It's like
There's so many.
you pick any record, and I'm like, okay, like I didn't like this song and this song as much, but this song, oh man, like you want to talk about Torpedo Girl? It's like, yes, I'm there, I'm on board. Like I just played that on vinyl like over and over and over again, And I didn't get Unmasked until I think it was like maybe 87, 88 on vinyl. Like I was still completing my collection at that point.
Yep.
And so yeah, to go and hear that, it's like, oh wow, interesting. And then finding out later that it was Anton Fig that played drums on that whole record and most of Dynasty. It's like, oh man, new things to be discovered all the time.
Oh yeah, all the Kiss secrets.
all the Kiss secrets, and have to give a nod and a tip of the hat to Bob Kulick, of course. Like that was real sad losing him recently. Yes. But finding out, like as the history got more and more revealed, like finding out just how much of a bigger part he was with Kiss than most people realize. That I was one of the guys that the first time I ever heard of him was seeing pictures of Paul Stanley's solo tour.
Yep.
In '89, and then they go, oh wait, no, he actually, those tracks on Alive 2, those new ones, yeah, like that was, he was on a lot of that. He's been a part of the family for longer than we knew.
Yeah, he'll be missed. He was awesome. He was something. So, Wasp, how did the Wasp gig come about?
The Wasp gig came about from a friend of mine, Mark Zavon, guitar player who, props to him, became the guitar player for Kill Devil Hill with Vinny Appice and Rex from Pantera. Not that long ago. He knew the guy, he knew Blackie and Mike Duda, and when they were looking for a new drummer, I had been jamming with Mark, actually just in like this weird Saturday afternoon covers gig down in one of the beaches in LA. I think it was like Hermosa Beach, just playing Beatles and Zeppelin covers, but I had gotten to know Mark and play with him a bit, and when they were looking, Mark dropped my name to them, and it kind of all came together in the course of like a couple of days. I want to say like I got the call on a Monday, and Zavon said, hey, Wasp is looking for a drummer. I went to Duda's house the next day to get a bunch of CDs, meet Duda, and I ended up talking to Blackie on the phone. Auditioned on Wednesday, and Blackie's like, you played pretty well. Like, why, like, you don't have a real gig right now. I said, no. He goes, well, what have you been waiting for? Like, I've been waiting for this. This is it. And so he asked me, like, what my schedule was, and I told him I was working a delivery job that I had to be at, like, 4 days a week at 5 in the morning. And Blackie goes, all right, well, we want to get started right away, so this Friday is going to have to be your last day of work. It's like, okay, sure, no problem. So I was thrown directly into the fire, as it were, and went right in. He went right with the writing and recording of Dominator, and then the after that record was done, the touring started almost immediately, and has always always there. Pretty consistent tours.
Yep.
Up until the time that I left. So.
Were you a Wasp fan back in the day, Mike?
I was, although I got to confess, they were still kind of, still a little bit younger and trying to be a good Catholic schoolboy at the time, and so I thought, oh well, Wasp is a little bit dangerous, and they have profanity in their songs, but that's okay because I also listened to Stryper, and they're like the good side of metal, but then like the more I listened to Wasp, like they kind of lured me over to the dark side, and then of course getting to just all of a sudden play those songs that I'd been listening to for a while. It's like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. This is so much fun. But definitely had them on my wall when I was a kid too. So it took a while to get past the kind of Wayne's World attitude about being in the band.
Is Blackie hard to work with?
I don't think so. I know a lot of people. I get asked that a lot, and I think because he has that kind of that mystique of the hard-nosed guy, pure businessman, taskmaster. But all he really asked of anybody that he worked with, whether you were in the band or in your crew, is that you just gave it your all the time. And like when I would beat myself up, like, oh dude, I dropped a stick when I was counting off a song. And he's like, that's physical mistake. That's going to happen. Like you're going to slip on stage. You're going to drop a pick. You're going to drop a stick. Something is, something's going to malfunction. But, it was the mental mistakes that he would come after you about. It's like, oh, I didn't start this song the right way. Well, that needed to be corrected very quickly. I learned so much from him, and one of the other big things I can say about him is like, sometimes you think like a boss might be a diva where like if they're having a bad day, you just want to avoid them. He was never like that. Things got to him, but he would never, like if it wasn't your fault, he would never take it out on you. If I had something that, I need to ask or, like musically, like, hey, do you want it like this? He was always cool. And so I'll always be grateful for the time that I got to stay in that band. It's like it was. I learned so much, and ultimately the music was just so much fun to do. Night after night. I
thought Dominator was a really good return to form for Wasp because I'll admit, man, there's some albums that he did. There's a lot of albums that he did that just they don't register to my ears. I don't know what it is, but this one, I'm like, finally, it's good songs. Straightforward, you know what I mean? Even obviously your drumming on it is awesome, but I felt like with that one, I'm feeling some of the old elements of Wasp are back. That's the way I felt.
Sure, I've heard that said as well, and that makes me happy. Dominator and Babylon were both really well received. I remember him even saying that one time, like more so than a few of the releases before, which was kind of always nice. But he definitely, when it comes to songwriting, he sweats every note, and he is never just okay, this is what it is, and let's do this, and it sounds good, let's leave it like that. Even like after an idea gets put down to tape, he will continue to work on it and like to see if it can get better. I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing. Because he will consider almost every possibility when it comes to the changes made within a song, just to see if you can get, make the song just, 1% closer to what he thinks is the best that it could be. And it's a fantastic thing to witness because he works so hard at it.
Why doesn't Wasp tour the U.S. very much? Because you probably never really played much in the U.S., did you?
When I was in the group, we did 2 tours in the U.S., and that was 2008 and 2010. And why, I hate to say, I really can't tell you. For as much as I was involved in the music aspect of things, and someone in the production, like, you know, I got to help edit some of the film clips that were used on stage and stuff like that. When it came to the business side or the business decisions of it, I was not involved at all. That was all up to Blackie. So I'm sure if someone asks him that, you'll be able to get a lot more of a straight answer. But I don't know. I think it could have been done. I'm really not sure. Hopefully he still will. And I would bet, you know, before he decides to bow out and call it a day, that he will do the States again, just as a tribute to the fans that have been there. But I don't know. I'm not sure. It was almost all Europe.
Yeah.
Almost all the touring that I ever did with the group was European.
So you kind of touched on something that I think about sometimes. So if he bows out and he does a farewell, you think he's going to include any of the past original members, or do you feel that he's done with those guys?
I don't know. I'm really not sure. Only because I think it's fair to say about Wasp is that I don't think there was ever one single quintessential lineup that they had with the band. Obviously, like, you know, even look at the first 4 records, there were different personnel.
True.
And so I'm not sure who he might include in something like that. He definitely might. I definitely, you know, can't say that he wouldn't. But I don't know if something like that would happen, like as far as who would he want, or just how that would all work. But who knows?
It would be cool. It would be awesome.
It would definitely be cool. I go see that.
So one thing that I think most people will say about Wasp and Blackie is that, man, he's a master of doing cover songs, and you guys do an awesome rendition of Burn on Babylon. But man, if you go through like the B-sides and the catalogs, I mean, obviously you go back to the Real Me and all these different songs. I mean, he does killer jobs on these cover songs.
Sure. I mean, it seemed like he was always careful about picking which ones he wanted the band to record, and just wanted to go with ones that he knew they would make, you know, we'd be able to make sound great. Burn was fun. We actually recorded that in the Dominator sessions, but he didn't think that he didn't think it was going to fit on Dominator, but he ended up including it on Babylon. And in the past he's done some that I thought were great. I actually, on my computer, I had things on shuffle, and the Wasp cover of Paint It Black from the Stones came up, and I was like, oh dude, this is killer.
Yeah. I just found one, the Levee Breaks, and I didn't know that he did that one. So it's every once in a while you'll just find one come out of the blue, you know. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Some of those that made the B-sides of singles and stuff like that, and some were done like just for fun, like the Promised Land, also the Elvis tune. It's like he is an Elvis nut.
Is he?
And just always loved that tune, and just wanted to do a similar version to the original, but just with everything cranked up to 11. And that was one of the definitely one of the most fun recording moments I ever had in the studio, was doing that. I think like we did it in like one take. It was so much fun. You can hear it on the record.
Now you're on the redone Crimson Idol, right?
I am on most of it.
Okay.
I haven't looked in to see which tracks ended up being done by who, but I know Frankie Benali came and did a couple of tracks. I'm not sure which ones, but he is on there as well.
Crimson Idol for me, it's a noticeable change in the Wasp sound. And there's this thing that I'll be honest, it kind of drives me nuts, and I want to get your take on it as a drummer. Invisible Boy, Dr. Rocker, there's these incessant tom fills that are in these songs, and this kind of style, right, pops up in other albums. It's still not Black Enough. It's on a couple of those other albums have this constant fills. Now, why? Now it's cool drumming, right? But for me, sometimes I'll be honest, it drives me nuts. What do you think of these crazy tom fills that go on some of these songs?
I think the vibe that he was going with when it came to the Crimson Idol was a controlled Keith Moon.
Right. Who? Yeah. The Who.
Definitely. Yeah. definitely records like Tommy and Quadrophenia were a huge influence in what he wanted to create with the Crimson Idol, I believe. And so, but rather than, kind of like that stream of consciousness Keith Moon approach of having a little bit more plan, I guess, kind of structure to it. And that, yes, that did become part of the Wasp drumming sound from there on out. Whether it works on releases that he continued to put out, I guess that's up to the ear of the beholder. I think, yes, I think it definitely continues. You can hear a lot of that on some of the Dominator and Babylon material, even through there. I guess I never viewed it as too much, only because I loved playing it. I loved figuring out songs like Invisible Boy or like I Am One, which I for my money is the most challenging song drum-wise on the Crimson Idol to get down note for note. I loved the structural approach that it kind of had when it comes to really trying to nail those drum parts. For me, no, I guess it never got too much, but I could see how it might be. But of course, for everyone who's going to say, I've read too much Tom fills, they might go back and listen to the first or second record and go, man, it's like this is kind of more simple drumming. It's like you need to kick up the fills a little bit.
Exactly.
But that's that just is going to come down to musical opinion. I liked it because it was so much fun to play.
Oh yeah, and I've caught some hate with a lot of my followers on Twitter, but I'll be honest. For some reason, I want to love Crimson Idol, and not saying that I don't like it, but I just I don't know. I have a heart. Something about it just doesn't register with me as well as, let's say, the first 4 albums do, and that's why, like I say, like with Dominator, I felt like, okay, the kind of Wasp, the version of Wasp that I like, I'm hearing it again. I think they kind of lost me. I think with Crimson Idol and Still Not Black Enough, I got lost a little bit. And I know there's been different albums that, KFD and Hell Dorado, those are anomalies of their own, you know what I mean? So Blackie's been all over the place, but that sound that creeped in on the Crimson Idol, it's just not my favorite. I'm going to be honest.
No, for sure. And I think Dominator was part of Dominator was a reaction to him wanting to take the whole concept record even a step further than that when he put out the 2 sequential records, the Neon God,
right,
1 and 2, 2 full albums worth of one single concept. It's almost like a double record in and of itself. And because of that, and because of the number of details in like the story that he was trying to get through, I think even he said, that was too much. Let's pull this back a little bit. And that was, I know that was one of the reasons why Dominator was much more straightforward, like it was. He was like, all right, let's ease back on the concepts for a little bit and just go for some good songwriting punch.
Yeah.
On songs like Mercy and stuff like that.
Oh, I love Mercy. Now, when you think of concept albums, and this is my take, for me, they're kind of like hit or miss. You could take something like Operation Mindcrime. I say that's a hit. I love that album. And it all works well. And then for some reason, I know there's albums that I want to love, like Crimson Idol, and even Streets by Sabotage. I don't know if you like Sabotage at all. That's one where, like, on paper, it sounds like I would love it, but for some reason I don't. And I think sometimes the story's so much in the author's head, it's hard to get it out to the listener. And I think if you can't get the story or if it doesn't seem coherent with the music, and sometimes it's just kind of lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a part of that I think has to do with like whether or not like there's an act, like when you say a concept record, or when any band says a concept record, it's like, is there a story? Like someone told me, or I always read, or Maiden said that Seventh Son of a Seventh Son was a concept record, and so I listened to it straight through, and I'm like, what's the story? Like,
right.
trying to figure out like a plot. Or going back to Kiss for a second, I got a really skewed idea about The Elder because I purchased it on compact disc when they had, remember the long boxes?
Yes.
When CDs were first released. I'm dating myself now, but yeah. You kids don't know the joy of the long box.
The long box kicked ass.
Back in the day.
They'll kick ass, man. You could cut out pictures off of it, and you used to be able to cut it out and put it on your wall.
I did that. I had Cowboys from Hell and Flying in a Blue Dream in long box format.
Yep.
And yeah, they went right up on the wall
Yep.
for sure. But with the Elder, and I'm sure you know that, like when they put it out on CD, they changed the order.
Right.
Like the Oath or the Fanfare and or what, Just a Boy was not first. The Oath was first.
Yep.
And like the whole the running order was all changed around. So I tried to get the story, the plot from that order, and then seeing like I think I saw a copy of like the original Elder on vinyl. I'm like, wait, this is not how the story goes, but it was completely different on the original release. So I don't know. Sometimes just concept records about a concept can work, although in the case of like Operation Mindcrime, it definitely seems like it has a story. Like you can kind of see like a timeline of events that happens within the record, and that does it for me. Like, yeah, I friggin' love Mindcrime for sure. But obviously, taking the whole idea, we're going to tell a story now and try and what I guess can be construed as trying to up the musical quality of the band. That sounded like Spinal Tap for a second. Musical quality, but that might be hit or miss. Obviously, like Blackie tried to do that with the double record of the Neon God, and even he told me, he goes, it ended up being too much story. Mm-hmm. You never know. It's going to be up. It's going to be different from band to band. You never know what's going to come out as something wonderful and something that's going to be hated. Or like you had mentioned KFD, like you said, the fan reaction to that record at the time was not good, right? People went like, what? Yeah. What is it? What, are you trying to be Nine Inch Nails or something? Like, what's going on here? But then, years later, people going, oh man, I always loved KFD. And he's like, really? Did you love it when it came out? Because we had a hard time with that one.
Yeah, actually, I think, but at the end of the day, I have oddball taste. Like, I like that one. You know what I mean? So I'm just an oddball. So everybody who likes Crimson Idol, they should like Crimson Idol. It's an incredible record, but I'm just an oddball, and I'd probably rather listen to KFD.
From what I can tell, it's definitely what started to cement Wasp being really big in Europe. Yes. Because I think I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say that the Headless Children was probably the peak of the band's popularity in America.
Yes.
But it only, with the release of the Crimson Idol, from what I can tell, it only seemed to go up in Europe from there. Helped by that record. So yeah, you never know when or where a band is going to strike gold.
So when you being out of Wasp, was it on good terms or?
It was on good terms. Yeah, it wasn't like any kind of big blowout. Mm-hmm. It just it was time that I left and I did. But still on good friends. Still on good terms with everybody. And like when he asked me to come back, he goes, "Hey, do you want to do some recording? We're going to redo the Idol." I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." Yes. And that was a great experience. So, yes, I would say still on good terms. All good.
You played in Dee Snider's solo band and did some shows. What's it like working with Dee?
Dude, well, yeah. I think what I mentioned with Wasp is like where it took a little bit to kind of get over the fact. I was like, oh wow, there's a guy that I had on my wall when I was a kid, and now I'm in the band with him. I think I had that with Dee the whole time because oh man, just ever purchasing Stay Hungry on vinyl. That was so much fun. And Dee wasn't like I didn't do any like touring with Dee because he wasn't touring at that point. He was just doing flyout dates. I think the touring stopped when Twisted Sister decided to stop touring as a band. So all the shows that I did with Dee were one-offs. But man, it was a completely different animal than Wasp. Pardon, that was a bad pun. I'm sorry.
Yeah, animal.
I didn't realize I said that.
That was good, man.
But with Dee, it was a different approach because first I think the big major difference was spontaneity. In that with Wasp shows, we knew exactly what songs we were going to do. We knew the order that they would be in, and we knew how we were going to perform them every night. With Dee, sometimes he'd be like, we had to watch him. It was like James Brown, we had to watch him to make sure that I wasn't speeding up or slowing down the tempos too bad. Or he's like, oh, hold on, let's bring it down, and he would, we'd put a breakdown in the middle of a song that had not been planned, so he could, go do a back and forth with the crowd, or just talk for a little bit. Or one show, he's like, I think like mid-show, he's like, do you know Highway to Hell? I'm like, yeah, I do. He goes, all right, we're going to play it. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do that. And so there are a lot of more spur-of-the-moment things with Dee, but it's like he still had the energy that he seemed to have in his early 20s. I mean, you look at the dude now, it's like, I don't know how old I don't know his exact age, but dude's ripped.
Yeah,
he's got like that Bruce Lee Iggy Pop thing going on. And once it's so fun to go out there with a guy who not only wants to go out and eat the audience alive, but is still enjoying every minute of it. And that was an absolute blast to go out there and play those classic songs with him. Mike,
who are some of your influences as a drummer?
I have chapter one. Because I've got to, I can only pick from a laundry list of a whole bunch of guys. I think Kenny Aronoff and getting to study with him at IU for the years that I did was a gigantic treat, and he continues to be an influence on me to this day. Definitely, I mean, all the Kiss drummers, for sure. Anton Fig, who I guess could also be considered a Kiss drummer at that point.
Yeah, he's kind of a Kiss drummer.
Yeah, it still is. And then, but following his other work that he got to do, like with Ace in the 80s and with Joe Bonamassa recently, Anton, is still out there killing it. When it comes to like more like straight up metal guys, probably my favorite would be Gene Hoglan. I've always been a big Devin Townsend freak since he sang on Steve Vai's Sex and Religion record when he was about 19. And then hearing the Strapping Young Lad material that came out after that with Gene on it was massive infatuation and influence that I had with that band and with those records. And since then, like, he's played with Testament. Who else? Boy, he's like sat in with Behemoth and Anthrax, and he is just the go-to metal guy because he is just flawless when it comes to his execution. He's a big one. Love Joey Jordison. Had a brief kind of obsession with everything he was doing, like with the Iowa record and with Volume 3 for sure. But I get influenced by anybody. I'll find sometimes like just one performance from one drummer will just inspire a whole new stuff. Like I was watching Manu Katché on Peter Gabriel's Secret World Live DVD from like I don't know when that was, like 92 or 93 or something like that, and just friggin' good lord, it's like him on drums and Tony Levin on bass, and it's just like that's a rhythm section that anybody would kill for, and they sound just so completely amazing. So I have a long list of influences.
Is there anybody out there that you're just dying to work with and you hope you get a chance to, or what do you think?
Ooh, well, if Devin Townsend's listening, I would always be up working with Devin. I know his strapping is not together anymore, but Devin is just, the guy's a machine. He just doesn't stop putting out new music, and every record seems to have a different, a different theme, a different direction, a different concept, a different everything about it, and that's what I love about the guy. But sure, there's a bunch of whole, anytime like. I know Cooke has his guys, the Talisman, I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah.
Backing up Gene and Ace, but hey, if one of those guys gets sick, I'd be happy to sit in. Or sure, anyone. There's some legendary artists like Joan Jett. Like, oh God, would kill to play for her as well. That would be amazing.
Yeah, those would be killer, man. Hey, anything you want to say to your fans in closing?
And to my 3 fans that are out there. No. I'm still in contact with a number of W.A.S.P fans that still always check in. and it's a real honor to still be part of that family for sure. But stay tuned, because things are going to be happening as soon as the COVID situation starts to lighten up a little bit, and I cannot wait to get back out there. There's a couple of artists like Phil X. Actually, I was possibly going to do his tour. Current guitar player for Bon Jovi. And I got to do some shows with him last year, and he's another performer that just absolute ridiculous amount of fun to play with. And if I ended up not being able to do it because of my son, and unfortunately his tour ended up being pulled anyway because they closed the States. Everything went on lockdown while he was out on the road. But hopefully we'll get a chance to play with him again for sure. Stick around, because I'll be back on the road probably before I know it.
Nice. Well, Mike, thanks for the conversation, man. We covered a lot of cool stuff and gave me some insight to what was going on behind the scenes with W.A.S.P, so I really appreciate it.
Sure. I appreciate you asking me. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I hope all goes well with your son and your family, and everybody, you guys stay healthy and safe.
Thank you. And you too, to you and yours, for sure.
All right, Mike. Take care.
All right. Cheers, brother. Thanks a lot.
Well, that was an awesome interview with Mike. Down below, I'm going to put a link to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. Help them out if you can. Rock on!